thinking you fall like the rest. Your failure is my success. It's all about control. Will you make it? I will deliver the pain. You can't take it. I'm in control. I am your pain. After this, you won't be the same. This is my time. I make the rules. You mess with this and you die like a fool. Hey! Here comes the pain. 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 Time to play the game.
How important it is to stay protected. Sometimes life throws you a curve, and that's why you need Allstate. The Wiley Group has 2 locations in Festus and Arnold to serve you. They offer home, auto, boat, motorcycle, business, life insurance, investments, and so much more. They offer a customized approach that is unique to your situation to make sure that you, your family, and assets are properly protected. They also offer great rates and savings. Give Sean and his team a call today at 636-764-6294. They'll help you with an insurance quote right over the phone. Even give them a call if you just want to talk sports. They do that too. We all have busy lives. So you can also email Sean at SeanWiley@allstate.com and talk to him about your coverage options. And remember, you're in good hands with Allstate. Hey, this is Derek King with the Derek King Sports Show. We all know buying a vehicle can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Fifth Street Motors, located in Pacific, Missouri, will help you find the vehicle that you need no matter what brand. Fifth Street Motors believes in giving you the best price on a pre-owned vehicle that will fit your budget. Give Brandon or Don a call today at 573-259-1306 and make sure you tell them that Gateway City Sports sent you.
This is Gateway City Sports. This is the Derek King Sports Show. Cardinals, Blues, Mizzou Athletics, Chiefs. He has it covered. The Derek King Sports Show. Only on Gateway City Sports.
All right, we're a little bit behind in the show and what we normally do it on Wednesday, being that life is a little bit crazy and a lot of things here recently have been, especially with the majority of what we typically talk about on this show with the St. Louis lawsuit versus the NFL, everything that's been going on. We're going to get you caught up to date on that. We're also going to get you caught up to date on a few other things, some rumors, some innuendo, some other stuff that I want to talk on real quick. We're not going to have a really long show today. We're probably we're at the 6-minute mark through our intro stuff. I just want to kind of take a minute to gather my thoughts earlier on. That's why we had such a long intro. But I do want to talk about a couple of serious subject matters before we get to the NFL lawsuit front, and it's correlated with that. This Washington football team email situation and what's going on there. This is the tip of the iceberg of when there's a lot of us in sports media, either on the professional side of it, that sit in a studio behind a microphone that have a big banner with ESPN or Fox or CBS or whatever it is, NBC behind you, or you have that wonderful little logo in the corner from one of the big media organizations, or even from people like myself who are independent media, and we're starting to look at this situation with bated breath almost to a certain extent, because this situation runs concurrent with everything that we typically see from the NFL and what they usually do. This is their MO, so to speak. This is what the NFL consistently does on a regular basis. When you talk about the nasty, dirty things that the NFL does, what they try to hide, how they try to hide it, this comes up from it. Now we have the United States Congress that's getting involved, that is now wanting an investigation into this investigation, and they're wanting to find out what happened. So let's look at the facts. The NFL requested that the Washington football team investigate themselves. Now, how that works is beyond my comprehension, because anytime that you have a serious allegation or series of serious allegations such as this, and you have an entity that needs to be independently investigated by a third-party source that has no affiliation, no ties to the entity that's under investigation, you would think, right, that mentally in your brain you would think, well, that makes sense. But instead, the NFL went to the Washington football team and said, hey, we need you to investigate yourself. Go out and hire a third-party investigation team and have them investigate you. So that's what they did. 650,000 emails later, you've got 3 emails or 4 emails or so, however many, that John Gruden, former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, rightfully so, was dismissed for his comments that we don't have to get into because everybody else has beat it to death. But he has been relieved. And you literally have been sitting on these things for months. And then you turn it over to the Raiders supposedly just days before that you want Gruden fired or relieved of duty, if you will. That doesn't make much sense. You've been sitting on this for this long. If it's, let me be very careful with my words here. This is beyond any shadow of a doubt some of the most egregious things that have been said. Now, there's a lot of people that say, well, privacy, this, that, that's a point of opinion or these other things. What's wrong is wrong, and he did it on company time, and he did it on the company email, and he should be held accountable for it, period. End of discussion. Now, if he was doing it on his personal cell phone that he was paying for, and somebody dug into that stuff without a warrant, without the justified rights that he's, given to under the United States Constitution, well, then we've got a problem there. Irregardless of how bad it was, it sets precedent, a legal precedent that you don't want to get into. Irregardless of how we feel about it personally, which I'm disgusted by a lot of his comments. We're getting to a point to where we're seeing what the NFL really is behind closed doors. I wrote a couple of articles in the past, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap in the NFL Cartel. And both of those, a lot of really good acclaim from a lot of fans, some critical acclaim from some other people in sports media, in which I was very happy to receive those comments about those investigative stories that I wrote. But this, again, shows proof that the NFL does what it does and continues to do what it does. Now, let's look at the St. Louis situation. And let's look at that and go, okay, what else are they hiding? If we know they did what they did in St. Louis, and we know what they did in other, cities and municipalities and the whole relocation thing, right? If they've done all of that stuff, what else? What else is out there? Why don't they turn over the 650,000 emails? What do they have to hide? If there's nothing in there that's of any concern, what's there to hide? I can tell you this, that if a individual is having a conversation like what John Gruden was having with Bruce Allen, it's not a one-way street, folks. I hate to burst a lot of people's bubbles, but it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. And this is obviously common conversation amongst these individuals. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so freely discussed in an email. I mean, let's think about this for a second. You're having those kind of comments in an email chain through ESPN, through the Washington football team and NFL channels. It isn't just one guy. It isn't just one person. There's a multitude of people that this wraps up. There's a multitude of people that this involves. And obviously the hideous and heinous accusations of photos taken without the permission of female cheerleaders and being distributed amongst people within NFL circles and even potentially media circles too as well. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a lot of different things that need to be addressed here, that need to be investigated. Does that mean that the government needs to come in and investigate the NFL? I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe there's a whole lot of people that need to be investigated. Maybe heads will roll. Who really knows, to be sure? We do know that there are certain particular owners and certain particular people that are executives and so on and so forth in the NFL that have a very checkered and questionable past that needs to be addressed. So we'll just wait and see on that. So let's also talk about what's kind of going on right now at the moment with the St. Louis NFL lawsuit. I'm just checking my notes here because I want to kind of make sure that I touch all of the bases on a lot of this information. Because one of the big things that came out here this last week and a half, 2 weeks, has been, let's work from the back to the front. Okay, there's been plenty of things that have been filed by the NFL in this case that they want to have, change of venue again. They're using an extreme circumstance filing. There's people, and I suggest people go over and ask Dan Lust, Daniel Wallach, those type of questions when it comes to law and the proper terminology that is used. The best way that I could do is I could explain it in layman's terms, what it basically means. The NFL wants to change a venue. They want to get out of the city. Supposedly, they say they can't get a fair trial in the city. That's bull. What this is about time. They're trying to buy more time. And if they can buy more time, that gives them a better opportunity to be able to maybe work up some kind of a settlement plan, do some other things. Because let me make it very clear, they're not going to willy-nilly turn over these financials, as the NFL lawyer had stated in his statement with Judge McGraw. And everybody has been kind of caught up with that the judge was very miffed of the fact that the NFL has not fully turned over the financial documents that it has requested for months. They're not going to turn them over. And if they do, they're going to drag their feet. And they said, well, we don't want them out there willy-nilly. I think that this is really getting to a point where this is going to have to get settled at this stage. They know their goose is cooked. They know this is done. The lawyers of this law team that are heading it up for the NFL are just bilking the hour clock at this point. They're just trying to add more time on, $1,000 an hour. Let's just continue to just keep racking it up here. Let's just rack it up. Because if they could do that, then they're in really good position to make some serious money. Because in reality, do you think that they're going to get another opportunity at something like this with a cost-insensitive client that literally does not care how much money they spend in litigation, just as long as they win? They're going to put themselves in a situation to where they can't back out, and I think they're already there. Now let's move up to the filing with the dismissal of Bob Blitz. They filed to have Bob Blitz, one of the lead attorneys in this case, and who was also sat on the stadium committee, the task force, and knew a lot of inside information. Let's not forget he was involved with the original lease with the Rams and a lot of other different types of stuff. This guy goes back decades. He knows his stuff. He's savvy. And so they filed to have him removed from the case 4 years or so after the fact of this case being started, created, gone through. You have to ask yourself the question, why now? What is it now at this point, this stage of the game, what is it now that would cause the NFL legal team to want to file to have him removed from the case? Well, there's two reasons for that. And these are the most simplistic reasons. Number one, it's time-saving move. Number two, the hopes that in getting him removed would also remove all of the depositions that he oversaw with Roger Goodell, John Mara, Jerry Jones, so on and so forth. They want to make sure all of that stuff is struck from the record. So this was a plan from the very beginning of what they wanted to do. They waited to this point. It's a time conservation move. They wanted to lengthen out the situation. They wanted to try to get this information thrown out of court in the case with the depositions and all the other evidence that Bob Blitz had worked on up to this point, and it backfired on them miserably. And also, might I add, when it comes to Robert Blitz, Mr. Bob Blitz, this man is as savvy comes. He's been in this business of doing what he's doing for over 40 years. This guy knows how to cross-examine. He knows how to interview. He knows how to be on the stand. He knows how to witness. He knows everything. He knows everything that there is to know about law. This is the guy that you want on your side. And yes, the NFL is scared of him to a certain extent. They're scared of what he knows. And it actually hurts them to actually have him on the stand. Because of the information that he knows, he could be cross-examined if they call him as a witness by the plaintiffs as well, to say, well, hey, did the Rams actually talk to the city? Or, hey, did the NFL come in and try to make any attempts with the city of St. Louis to make this work or fix this problem? And so there's the danger of having Robert Blitz on the stand as a scene witness. Now, there's also things that they could potentially do, because let's back it up too as well. If Bob Blitz stayed on as a lawyer, the NFL law team could have filed a appeal or grievance, whatever you want to call it, to the fact that he was on the case and that they couldn't have gotten a fair trial because you had somebody with insider knowledge of the situation that was working hand in hand with the plaintiff. And that might still potentially be a route that they go. I highly doubt it. Because now at this point, they can treat him as a hostile witness. They could have his testimony thrown out of court for some odd juncture reason. And this is always, everybody has to remember, this is only if they get to trial. I don't really know if that's going to happen. There's days where I sit here and I go, this thing might actually go to trial. And then there's days where I look at it and go, there's no way. With the information that the St. Louis law team has against the NFL at this stage of the game, there's no way that they're going to have this thing go to trial. They're going to lose. And I think they know they're going to lose. The thing is how much damage is it going to do in the process? The even from a St. Louis fan's perspective is the more terrifying portion of it is that what will the NFL get on appeal? If they get an appeal, what would they get on appeal? That's the biggest concern of the situation. So we're just going to keep following it. I suggest everybody follow Daniel Wallach, and Dan Lust over there at Conduct Detrimental, because they've just got a ton of stuff. Obviously I was on the panel here, about a week and a half ago, if I remember correctly. So, and thank you everybody for the great response. Thank you for everybody who gave all of their well wishes and things of that nature. I appreciate all of that. And I look forward to the next one when we do have another one. I would be greatly honored to be involved with a second one of those. So the next thing that I want to discuss here real quickly is that, we're coming up on the year end for the Cardinal situation. Obviously, everybody's familiar with the Mike Shildt dismissal. Brian Swope, one of our head writers and editor over there at Gateway City Sports, he wrote a fantastic article that's been getting a lot of traction. And the question that you really have to ask is it time for Mo to go? Are we really at this point in time now that we need to move on from John Mozeliak? And there's part of me that says, yes, absolutely, it's time for a change. But then there's another part of me. There's another part of me that goes, maybe he's only dealing the best with what it is that he has. Maybe he only has so much to work with. I don't know, to be sure. I'm not John Mozeliak. I don't sit in that chair. I don't wear those shoes. There might be a scenario to where he's dealing with, and this is no pun intended, but with such a stacked deck of cards that he might not have the success that he could potentially have if he were to have more help from ownership. Now, there's a lot of people that have said the same thing too as well, of that, hey, we're not really talking about John Mozeliak here. We're talking about Bill DeWitt. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the DeWitt family that owns this organization and how they won't invest certain amounts of monies into the organization. I want to throw a few numbers out there, and I try not to bore everybody with it, because it's really important that everybody has the actual hard data. When you talk about the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Angels, so on and so forth, big market teams, right? We're talking the top 3 markets in the nation, the Mets. Those organizations, especially the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers, just those 3 in particular, they're spending up to and beyond the tax threshold. So they're spending 200 and what is the tax threshold now? Is it 285 million, 275 million? It's somewhere in that vicinity. I haven't looked it up. I don't have the information in front of me. But it's somewhere ish in that 200 and something $1 million range. The Cardinals are typically spending, and I think if last year serves correct, between 145 and 165 million dollars in payroll. And that could be up or down, but it's somewhere in that vicinity. Now, if you look at the numbers of revenue, of how much these teams generate, the Yankees spend only 20 to 30%, as do the Red Sox, or I think the Red Sox are probably closer to 30 to 40%. But the Yankees in particular spend between 20 and 30%, I'll get it out there, of their actual revenue streams. And they're spending up to the tax threshold. That shows you how much money that the Yankees have. The same thing goes for the Dodgers. They're only spending 20 to 30%, maybe 40 max on payroll, and they're spending up to the tax threshold. This is the issue in baseball, as to where you have really poor teams, then you have a majority clump of teams, 70 to 80% of teams that are right there in the middle. Think of like hash marks on a football field. And you have like 0, obviously. You have 30, you have 70, and then you have 100. Most teams sit in here, in between 30 and 70, in that range, if you're talking about a scale of 100. The Yankees sit all the way up here, at the very top. They sit at nearly 100. You know, the Red Sox are right up there. You know, you got the Cubs on the upper end of that hash mark. So you've got to start asking yourself the right questions when it comes to what are the Cardinals doing. The Cardinals understand to a certain extent. The organization, let me make it clear, the organization understands to a certain extent of that, hey, we can't compete with these big market teams because of the way baseball is structured. The way that the finances are structured, the way that the markets are structured, there's no way that we can compete with the Yankees because of the TV money. Same thing with the Dodgers in Los Angeles. There's no way they can compete with the TV money. Should we go back to the reason of why the Rams left St. Louis and went back to LA? This is the reason. TV money, instant money. Boom. You got it. This is it. So let's go back to the Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, and versus the Cardinals, where you've got the Cardinals that sit in right smack in the middle to the upper end of that middle hash. The Cardinals can spend 160, 170 million, but they're spending what, 60%, give or take. They're spending close to 60% of their net value of their market share. How is it that the Cardinals are spending 60% and the Yankees are only spending 20 to 30? How in the heck could that be possible? Well, it's because of the market. It's also because Major League Baseball does not operate on the same premise that the NFL does, where there's market sharing. Just because you have a big market doesn't mean you make all of the money. Everybody throws everything into a collective pot, and everybody pulls from said pot. There needs to be a salary cap. MLB Players Association doesn't want that. I wrote this in one of my articles that I just recently put up here a couple of weeks ago called Strikeout. Go check it out. But the issue is that you've got certain things in baseball that need to be addressed. They're worried about what do they call it? The rate of play, or they need to speed things up because people don't have the attention span. That's a load of crap. Because fans still love baseball. The problem with baseball is their teams aren't competitive. You know, I love the saying from the movie Moneyball, is that you've got good teams, you got great teams, you got good teams, you got poor teams, and then you got 50 feet of crap, then you got us. And that's the problem. When you got teams that are sitting at the bottom of the barrel that don't make any money and are never going to win, why do fans have any reason to invest in that team and show up? And especially teams in certain markets, like in Florida with Tampa Bay, and now we know that they're going to be playing half the season in Montreal as the Expos, and the other half of the season in Tampa Bay as the Rays, which are probably going to eventually go full-time to Montreal at some point. This is the issue. The Players Association isn't going to do anything about a salary cap because they want players to make those max contracts at $300-something million over 10 years. They want players to make more and more and more and more and more. But if you have a salary cap, you can't do that. But how does football get around that where baseball does not? It's a wonderful little thing called signing bonuses. Now, see, there's another problem. If you have signing bonuses and you have these teams that, like the Yankees and the Dodgers and everything, get all the big superstar players, and the other markets can't land them, like a St. Louis or a Colorado or a smaller market team that can't land these big name players, well, then guess what? You set up a percentage that goes against the cap on a certain amount of signing bonuses. It's that simple. It ain't that hard. You can say, okay, you've got a certain limit that you can spend before you start getting hit on the salary cap. Ain't that hard. But again, the Players Association doesn't want that. The owners, I think, would be fine with the salary cap. They'd definitely be fine with the salary cap because that means they could bring in more players. They could have more players for less money, and they could control that cap, and they could use that cap as their negotiating tool when it comes to the next CBA. But that's the whole point. The Players Association doesn't want it. So you've got one entity in the Players Association, the other entity in the owners in the MLB that are constantly pushing against one another like opposite or like the same poles on a magnet. You can't have that because you're never going to have success and you're never going to get beyond what the issue is that is hurting baseball right now. This is the thing that's killing the league. Minute by minute, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be. And everybody talks about launch angle, and they talk about analytics, and they talk about all this. Yeah, you know what? Great. That's all fine and dandy. I love the movie Moneyball. It's entertaining. But the reality is, I miss the steal. Do you miss the steal? I miss the stolen base. You know what I miss? I miss a good pinch hitter. I miss situational hitting. I miss a lot of things in baseball. I miss a lot that has gone to the wayside over the last couple of decades for the sake of making it a sexier game, for the sake of making it more interesting to the younger viewer. That's a load. Because I'm a younger viewer, if you really think of it. I mean, I'm in my late 30s. So, you know, if you're looking at it from that perspective, I'm a relatively younger viewer. I'm not a kid, but the fact of the matter is that, yeah, the home run is sexy, but so is the stolen base. Because I appreciate that so much. So a good pitching performance, all these other things. You've got pitchers now that are consistently blowing their arms out because they're trying to pitch harder and harder and harder in order to meet the demands that are put on them for spin rate, velocity, so on and so forth. And that can't continue. It will ultimately cause the demise of the game. There's so many things that need to stop. We'll address the pitching thing real quick. Why did they lower the mound when they did? Well, we all know the story behind that. It's Bob Gibson. They lowered the mound in order to make it a straighter shot for pitchers at the batter. If they were to raise the mound back up just a little bit, or they were to move it a little bit further back or closer, or whatever, however they would need to make those adjustments, then we could probably start talking about a more level playing field when it comes to the game. You're not going to see pitchers loading up snot balls and spit balls. I mean, do we need to go back in time and talk about Gaylord Perry and all the stuff that he would put on a baseball? I mean, we don't need to get into that. We've been talking about that for a long time. The fact of the matter is that this is going to have to get addressed by baseball. It's going to have to get addressed very, very soon. If it does not, this game is going to die a slow and painful death. It has to be addressed. There needs to be control over the finances of the league. There needs to be something put into place like a salary cap. There needs to be market sharing done with all of these major teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs. And this is where the biggest gripe for me lies, is right here. When you have 4 or 5 teams that control the entire narrative of the league because they make all of the money, and they can go and they can tank for, 2 or 3 years, get big draft picks, get some good players, load up on talent, and then make another run for another 5-6 years, and then beat everybody in baseball again. This is the problem. You've got an organization like the Cardinals that consistently does well. They consistently just win. Now, do they win the big one? No, once every 10 years. That's about the extent of the Cardinals. I mean, let's say we got lucky in the 2000s. We went to the World Series in 2004, went to the World Series in 2006 against the Tigers. We won. Went to the World Series in 2011 against the Rangers as a long shot. Won. Went to the World Series again. What was it in 2015? Lost. I think it was 2015. Or was it 2013? I can't remember anymore. So we had some success. We had some success that was there in the 2000s that we can kind of hang our head on. How many times did we go to the playoffs? Multiple times. Had a lot of success. But that's where the Cardinals kind of fall into it. So I think, personally speaking, that's where they need to make some changes on that. Outside of that, not a whole lot else going on. We're going to stay tuned in to the NFL lawsuit stuff. We're going to stay tuned in with the Cardinals organization and the moves they're going to be making, who are they going to be hiring at manager. There's some rumors out there about who they're going to bring in, about maybe who they're not going to be bringing in, maybe who they're going to continue to fire from here on out. There's some rumors floating around about some of that stuff, so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about a few other things coming up soon. We're going to continue to keep playing with the format Hopefully it's a little bit better for everybody, and maybe we might start doing this in the evenings, later in the evenings, some nights or something like that, because I feel like we're missing the boat with some folks, and then people forget about it, and then they don't tune back in, and that's okay. That's fine, because I'm I'm doing it because I enjoy to do it, and I want to get the information out there to all you folks, and we're doing the best we can with what we have, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. So just stay tuned. We'll see. We'll see whenever I pop back in here, and whenever we have some more information and some more stuff to talk about. And if you don't see me on here, you're going to see me on TOR. You're going to see me on Pro Football Alliance, XFL STL show. You're going to see me on all sorts of different platforms and different shows. And I've been on here recently. Let's see. I was on here a month or so, 2 months back. I was on Toasted St. Louis. I was also on Musial Suspects too as well. And all fantastic shows. Go check them out. And, hey, I'm always popping in. I'm always doing something. So just stay tuned. But as for me, I'm signing off. I got a high school football game to go to tonight. So I'm going to go do that. Till then, next time, guys, take it easy. Love you. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.